Thank you and welcome to today's Candidates Forum, brought to you in partnership with the City Club of Central Oregon and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, two organizations that are passionately nonpartisan and whose purpose today is to engage and inform Central Oregon voters for the special district election on May 18th. Our goal is to provide opportunity for fair and impartial discourse, to educate voters about candidates' views on the issues, and to stimulate voter interest and participation in election. Today, we are hosting the candidates for the Ben Lapine School Board positions. The candidates participating today are Carrie Mcpherson Douglas for Zone 1, Marcus Legrand for Zone 2, Shirley Olson for Zone 4, and Yannette Urandi for Zone 7. Candidates must reside and be registered to vote in the zone they are running for. My name is Kim Scott, League of Women Voters past president, and I'm honored to serve as moderator today. Today's live stream is also made possible by Connect Central Oregon, a nonprofit launched with the assistance of OSU Cascades Innovation Collab. Our sponsors for the entire series of candidate forums are G5 Digital Marketing, Miller Lumber, Brooks Resources, the Deschutes Public Library, Shearshaw's Group, and Louis Capozzi. We are grateful for their support for these educational forums. If you are interested in supporting City Club or the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, please check out our website to get more information, cityclubco.org and lwvdeschutes.org. All candidates who are in contested races were invited to participate via email and follow-up phone calls. We do not let a lack of response or an RSVP of regret cancel our forums. We appreciate the gravity of committing to run for office, and our goal is to provide an opportunity for fair and civil discourse. Thank you to the candidates who are participating in today's forum. We will start with 2-minute opening statements, then each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer questions in a rotating order. Questions are taken from the community and members of City Club and the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County. At the end, each candidate may give a 2-minute closing statement. For opening and closing statements, we have randomly selected the order. So let's get started. For opening statements, we are going to start with Shirley Olson for Zone 4. Shirley, would you unmute and give us your opening statement? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kim, and I really appreciate this opportunity to talk a little bit about what's important to me and what's important to Ben Lapine School Board. I am running for Zone 4, which is South Deschutes County. I'm a native Oregonian and I'm a career educator. I've worked in 3 states, 8 school districts, and done some private consulting with educational companies. So I know schools, but I also know the role of a board member. And I'm very pleased to stay active in the area. I believe in giving back to your community. I have a grandson who's a senior at Summit, and I have a granddaughter who's a 7th grader at Pilot Butte. And I have followed the Ben Lapine schools for quite a while. I'm on the Ben Lapine School Budget Committee. I'm a supporter of the Sun River Nature Center and the library, Lapine Senior Activity Center. And I'm a smart reader volunteer at Roslyn Elementary School in Lapine. So that's who I am. And I appreciate the opportunity to answer some more direct questions relating to the schools and the school board. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Next, Carrie Mcpherson Douglas for Zone 1 will be our next speaker.
Good evening. Thank you, Kim, and thank you to the League of Women Voters and City Club for hosting this forum so the voters have a chance to get to know us a little bit better. And thank you to my fellow candidates on this forum for stepping up to serve. I think that school board leadership has probably never been more important than in this moment in history. And many school boards across the country are in chaos and dysfunction at this moment, and that is not good for anyone, but definitely not students. And our board and district is not in chaos. It has been hard, but we have been and continue to work collaboratively to get kids back in school despite significant obstacles. And that is in some part due to my leadership as chair of the board. It has not been easy, but I have worked tirelessly to bridge the divide in our community, to work with my 6 individually elected fellow board members, with the superintendent and cabinet, with our 2 unions, and with students, family, and community who all have very different opinions about what we should be doing during this time. So I think that especially at a time when 3 of my current school board colleagues are not seeking re-election, and when we're emerging from a pandemic and when we are onboarding a new superintendent, that I'm really uniquely qualified to continue to provide strong and consistent, but also transformative leadership during this time. And in addition to my most important role, which is as the mother of 2 children who will be in Ben Lapine schools for the next 15 years or so, I think there's 4 primary reasons why I'm uniquely qualified to continue to lead on the board. I was born and raised here, and I have 40 years worth of relationships and community involvement across very diverse stakeholders. I'm an entrepreneur, I own 2 small businesses, and I hold an MBA, so I know finance and business. I have 20 years of local and national experience in education, and am deeply knowledgeable and committed to both equity and excellence. And I really want to continue to fight for Ben Lapine to be one of the best school districts in the country.
And that we appreciate your,
Thank you.
your opening statement. Yenet, sorry, Yurandi.
Thank you, Kim. Thank you. Thank you for hosting us tonight. Thank you for providing this opportunity in this space. Thankful to you all and to my fellow running mates here. Thank you all for being here together. This is great. My name is Yanet Sarai Yenandi. I am a first-generation born American citizen of Indigenous migrant parents. My advocacy work and my work as a parent here in Central Oregon is the reason why I'm running for school board. I'm running for Zone 7, which is an at-large seat. And my experience, as well as my children's experience in the Ben Lapine School District, has come with challenges and barriers and other opportunities that were somewhat lacking for families like myself. In addition to being a parent and community member, I'm also a single parent, which comes with its own unique sets of challenges. My 2 children are multiracial and attend our school district, in which they have experienced levels of racism and white supremacist practices that I am here to advocate for. I currently serve as the administrative and finance coordinator for Better Together and the Early Learning Hub of Central Oregon. These are 2 organizations that are making great strides to work in partnership with our school district board members, educators, teachers, faculty, and staff to advance equity in our schools and to center the needs of marginalized communities. In addition to that, I'm the executive director of NECA Bend, a nonprofit group that I started as a resource navigation center for my fellow Latinx and undocumented community members. Again, I'm here as a mother first and foremost, but I'm also here with a lot of lived experience that brings a unique edge to my role as the next board member of the Ben Lapine School District. So thank you again for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much, Yenet. Marcus Legrand, your turn for Zone 2. Please unmute. Marcus, you need to, wonderful.
No, thank you, Kim. I appreciate it very much. And I want to thank the League of Women Voters as well as City Club for being able to sponsor this evening. And this is a hard act to follow. I have 3 lovely ladies here that I'm hopefully to be on the school board here with really soon. And I love their passion and love the things that they bring to this table. And I'm looking forward to hopefully serving with all of them. All right. Hello, my name is Marcus Legrand, as I said before. And currently I serve as the College and Career Success Coach at Central Oregon Community College. Dedicating my time to assisting many students in achieving a high level of learning to overcome barriers, mostly by connecting them with supportive resources in the community. In addition, I'm an instructor for the social sciences, business, and I'm currently an executive board member of the Fathers Group, a nonprofit organization African-American led, structured to assist students to build equity in small business to have some sustainability here, not only in Central Oregon, but hopefully throughout the country. For the last 11 years, my role have included counseling, academics, academic advising, coaching, as well as a college administrator. I've organized and established several youth development programs through credit recovery, alternative education programs, with an emphasis on building relationships between the participants, the community, and community organizations. Presently, I work with high schools and community organizations to build equity for students and their employees to understand the importance of inclusivity while building advocacy, not only for while they're doing their education, but once they leave. For example, this week I'm going to be able to have the opportunity to work with a group of students who are looking to know how to interrupt racism while in their school. And I'm looking forward to that opportunity, be able to engage with them to see what type of things they're going to need support for, as well as their teachers. All these experience over the years has given me a perspective on what is needed in our community and to prepare students for higher education, career development, and beyond. And I'm a firm believer in saying education is best served through collaboration. Thank you again thank you.
I'd appreciate those opening remarks. We will now go on to the question part of the forum. And Carrie, you are first up. So if you will unmute, the questions will be the same for everybody until we're done. Carrie, schools are closed when there is a concern for the safety of children, be it from weather conditions or outside threats such as the pandemic. What do you think should be the deciding factor for reopening schools, and what source or sources would you use for this information?
Yeah, thank you. Obviously a really important question during this time. I think that the deciding factor for reopening schools, first of all, has to be made collaboratively with all stakeholders. Our job is to serve students, but we are only able to serve students by working with our staff who is in school with them every day. So it needs to be made collaboratively. It needs to be made based on data and science when that's relevant, and talking to a variety of experts. And so, when deciding whether or not to open schools, as an example, I utilized every available piece of data or research that I could find. We talked to everyone from public health experts to, school safety experts. I learned more about ventilation than I ever thought I would need to know, and weighed the needs of our students, our staff, and our community, because our stakeholders include almost everyone. You're either a taxpayer or a student or a parent in almost every situation, and ultimately made the best balance of decisions that we could for our students after research and data and talking to experts.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Appreciate it. Next, Janet, you're next on the question. Would you like me to repeat?
No, thank you. It's in the chat. I appreciate it. Thank you, Kim. I have to back up what Carrie just said, and learning and being able to be further informed on the measures and the objectives of the current school board has really given a lot of us a more thorough and an in-depth understanding of the challenges that come with reopening schools in a safe manner. Again, I couldn't agree more with Carrie in backing her statement and saying, listening to the data, reviewing it, analyzing it, understanding it, and the science that goes behind it too. It was probably one of the most frustrating and incredibly difficult things for the board to have to go through during a pandemic where their own health and safety and that of their families was also on the line. And having to consider not only what students and families need, but what educators, teachers, superintendents also feel is necessary during that time. I don't think that there would have ever been a one right way or one right decision that could have been made to do it any better than it was done by the board. And that takes that collaborative effort that I have the good fortune and privilege of being able to see from afar, hopefully more in depth sooner. But again, for my campaign and for my family, we listen to the science. We go off of what the state is telling us, what the CDC recommends, what ODE is telling us is safe. And the way that we do that is important so that we truly honor the voice of the community when there's missing information or perhaps information that wasn't attainable to them in a language that they speak. We as educators, as staff, as participants, as board members have a great responsibility to our community. And that responsibility comes with action around it. And so if we're not actively listening and we're not actively progressing our methods to adjust to the community, I think it's going to be a really tough decision for anybody to do it right.
Thank you so much, Janet. Marcus, same question.
Hey, Kim, I appreciate it very much. So I'm not going to pile on to what the lady said because I'm similar in their regards. I want to look at the next level. Now that we've had this pandemic, is basically what you're asking. Let's look at what we're going to build to be able to make sure that we don't have to go to the same things we did before. Let's look at the things that we have learned from this, right? You're going to have the data. You're going to get all the information. Like we said, we're going to keep everything protected and safe. That is the common thing. We get that. But what are we going to do the next time? Are we prepared for that? Are we put things in place to make sure that the things that we learn from this situation doesn't repeat themselves? Also, let's continue to be collaborative with that. Who are we talking to? The stakeholders. Stakeholders are whom? Basically what? Teachers, staff, faculty, administrators, students, their families. Let's look and see exactly what's going on to be able to know and be transparent with the information so they feel safe that they're going to be okay to make proper decisions for themselves. Let's make sure that we put things in place and have them in policy to say, hey, if this happens again here, we can do these things to make sure that we're ready for them. I think that's what we need to start preparing for if we have something like this again, right? I think that's where the work's going to begin, by looking at things to make sure they're structured properly so we don't have to go through some of the heartaches that we had to before. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Shirley, your turn.
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to take just a little bit different view. Schools have always been one of the safest places for kids. We provide not only an education, we provide food, health, services, whatever a kid needs to be successful in school. I want our schools to continue to be that way. And I also would never want to be part of an organization that made some major mistakes in this critical time. So I do believe that with Carrie's leadership and the current school board, they did everything they could possibly do with the goal in sight to get kids back in the classroom. But the collaboration and the knowledge and the data are really important to me. I have been in Columbine High School, not at the time that happened, and that was a long time ago now, but they still have a scar. And I'm sure that some of our kids will carry that scar for a long time too. And some of our families have really been pushed to the limit. So I believe that whether you shut a school down or whether you reopen it, that all of the things that have been named need to be in consideration, and that staff and the community and kids need to understand why decisions are being made and how they're being made. So one of Carrie's favorite things is transparency, and I really believe in that. So you got to talk to people and you got to listen.
Thank you so much, Shirley. On to our second question. Janet, you're the first person on this one. Your participation in this forum shows that you want to educate voters about your views on issues so that they can make informed decisions when voting. Please share your opinion on the school board's role in communicating and engaging with the public and existing board members.
That's a great question. Thank you for that. I think that in the state that we're in across the country, here locally, what I've seen in my experience is that the school board, educators, faculty, again, superintendents, are looking for meaningful change. And they want to do what's right and what's equitable for all students and families. But there's a gap that exists there. There's a gap that needs to be bridged between what the school board does versus what the community knows that they do. And when that gap exists, there is a cultural component for myself personally, as a person that identifies with their indigenous Mexica roots. I am a predominantly Spanish speaker. If information is not put out for me as a parent to understand, then we can't have engagement and we can't have parent voice leading that work that the school board is responsible for. So being able to present myself as a sort of conduit for that is the way that I achieve that, is in informing, in raising awareness, and in educating our own educators on the disparities that affect communities like my own. And it goes far beyond just communication methods and translation of services. It goes into intentional, invested, and meaningful outreach. And if the school board is not guided with that message and does not center that need, then there's still going to exist that disconnect that we see right now. So in my role in stepping into this position of potential school board member, I bring this cultural integrity that I think is missing. I bring that connector piece, these relationships that I've built over many years in Central Oregon, so that we can move together, so that we can be informed together, and so that the community at large sees that the school board is truly dedicated to uplifting and raising that awareness for all students.
Thank you very much, Janet. Marcus, your question next.
It's quite simple. It's the willingness to want to reach out across the aisle and say, hey, here's what we have. If we represent the full community, and this I think we represent it here with me, Janet, Carrie, and Shirley from all different levels and all different knowledge base. Think about it. With us on the board, that basically connects us to different community streams that we didn't have before. The district is doing a phenomenal job of starting to already invest in those things. You have the equity cadre that's already happened, right? You have the equity coalition that's already happening. You have lead teachers looking at trying to find diverse ways to bring stuff into their classrooms, right? But that's just only the beginning. Remember, a couple of years ago, before we went into this pandemic, we basically already had outlined what the DEI regiment looked like. And that's going to be spelled out very nicely. We have to look back at that and continue to keep moving forward with those things. With the Student Success Act, those monies we get, if they're going to come back, let's continue to keep pushing forward there. They're putting the things in place. Our curriculum director is of Latin descent. You have an African-American gentleman now who's a head recruiter to be able to bring people here who are people of color, but educate them on why they're coming here, not just because they're coming to find a job, but they're going to be supported when they get here. So they're taking the steps. So guess what? We're already starting to communicate, but we got to continue to keep that conversation going and never stop. That's why when the superintendent comes here, we as an organization like the Fathers Group are able to sit down with him and say, hey, here's what the community has said. You have our ear, but at the same time too, we have your support if you support us as well. That's what it's going to continue to take for this to be successful. So I think we're already starting to communicate.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Next, Shirley.
Yes, there can never, ever be too much communication. We define it in a lot of different ways. And again, as Marcus said, it's pretty simple. It's called engage and listen and share and collaborate. Another example would be with staff and the unions and direct administrators who are on with feet on the floor, you know, at the schools. You need to, as a board member, you need to be able to connect with them. You need to be able to earn some trust and listen. And it takes a while. It takes a while to earn trust across the board. But I also believe, and again, one of the reasons that I'm so committed to South Deschutes County is the visibility factor. We need to be real people. We need to be seen. We need to be helpful. And yet we also need to stand by with our integrity about what we know and what we think should happen. So again, communicating and engaging with the public is probably a number one. And then turning that communication into action is the challenge.
Thank you very much, Shirley. On to the, or Carrie, I'm sorry.
No problem, you can skip me anytime. I would echo everything that's been said and add a few things. I think not only is this a role, but it is the primary role of a school board. When it comes down to it, a community's schools are owned by the community, and the elected board are the people that the community have elected to steward those schools on their behalf. So it's a really serious responsibility and commitment. And, when I got onto the board, I felt like we were a black box. Our meetings, are difficult to understand. We use a lot of terminology that's difficult. They're long. There's many parts of the meeting that folks wouldn't be interested in, and then sprinkled throughout maybe a few pieces that they are interested in. So I've done a lot over the last 4 years to try to make some improvements, including live streaming our board meetings so people can participate at home. When I can find the time as a volunteer, I get on Facebook after a meeting and try to write summaries and answer questions for folks. I go out into the community. I'll speak with any group that will listen or who wants me to listen about what's going on with our school board. But even through all those efforts, we've only taken the black box and made it a little more accessible to folks that have always had more access to government and to decision making. And so we have a long way to go to really bring the message to all of our constituents, allow people to participate in the way that they feel most comfortable, and to really feel welcomed and invited to, be listened to and to be heard. And then as far as my board colleagues, I talk to them almost every day. I talk to the superintendent and union president almost every day. Communication is everything. You just have to keep lines of communication open, and you can often solve what seem to be impossible problems if you just open those doors and talk.
Thank you very much, Carrie. The next question will be new, and Marcus, you get it first. OEA members helped pass the Student Success Act, House Bill 3427, which aims to correct 3 decades of underinvestment in our schools. It requires school districts to build on strengths and assets of young people, educators, and historically marginalized groups. COVID has had an impact on this legislation. What are your thoughts on the Student Success Act bill?
Thank you very much, Kim. It's necessary. I mean, it's long necessary, long overdue. I think we realize that in this country, and I don't really want to get into the details of that, but we understand that the systems we've been dealing with for so long have not only been impressive, but mostly they have been restrictive. If they would understand that we're just looking to have the opportunity to have the same options that many people have, that's all we're looking to do. The act is successful if it's actually delved out right, if it's given the support it's needed. In other words, do you have the people in place to be able to make sure you can do these things, right? Just don't load it down on one person. If you're going to have a director of diversity, just don't give that person that one responsibility with no staff. Are you going to give them the opportunity to be able to go into schools? Are administrators going to allow them to come and work with counselors and work with the special ed programs and so forth to be able to work with the various facets of a school building? Guess what? If you're going to make this happen, make sure that you have some meat to it. Make sure you have it detailed out where it's going to allow people to have the true equity that we deserve. Now, that being said, you have to be inclusive in that. You got to understand, if you don't have the staff to do it, utilize some of the community organizations here who have the expertise and the know-how to be able to support those things. Because if a student sees someone who looks like them and understand the importance of having them there every day, they know they're going to be able to be successful. That's what we want with that act. Continue to work with the organizations to get things done and support what we're trying to do here in the Benton Pine School District. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Shirley, your question next. Please unmute.
Yes, gotcha. Thank you, Kim. The Student Success Act came about before the pandemic hit, and it really is targeting the 2 words that we keep using, equity and excellence, for every student. We have lots of data about disenfranchising many of our students and to some degree staff. And the good news is, I mean, I never want to be a part of a bad organization. So it's a good organization. The Benton Pine School Board has done some phenomenal things these last few years. And the Student Success Act, there is a plan. There's a plan in place. It kind of got stopped with the pandemic when we had to close schools and hibernate for a while. I like to use that word instead of other words. And so looking at that plan, just as an example, I'm pretty sure I understand this correctly. Some of that money is going for summer schools and tutoring, not just for 1 year, but for a couple of years. We can't close some of the educational academic gaps in one 4-week, 6-week summer school session. It has got to be a combined effort. And I do believe that there are some other organizations outside the district who can also support those efforts to really make a difference for individual kids. I have been in charge of bilingual programs. I've been in charge of special ed programs. I know that individual kids sometimes just kind of fall behind the woodwork. So we need to be sure that we have class size, that we have educated and professionally developing our staff and faculty. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shirley. And that, Carrie, your question next.
Yeah, so I was on the board when this act was passed, and I was looking at it from a couple of different perspectives, both as a school board member and a steward of our community schools. I'm also a small business owner, and was looking at the tax implications for my small businesses, and then thinking about my kids who are incoming Ben Lupine students this fall, and to say that the Student Success Act bill was necessary is an understatement. Oregon has truly underinvested in education for a long time. We are consistently in the bottom of our 50 states around education investment. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I don't like to be at the bottom of anything. And just one stat about how that plays out is that because of that disinvestment and our extremely short school year, over the course of their 12 years in Ben Lupine, our students attend 1 year less of school than the average length of school of students around the country. So it is real. This act is incredibly important. It provides much needed resources around counseling, mental health supports, better communication with our linguistically diverse parents. It is critical, and I am always nervous that when times get tough that we will try to roll back taxes. I have 2 businesses that have been decimated by this pandemic, but I do not want these taxes to decrease. We need this investment in our schools, and I understand as a small business owner that it's also important that we have really high quality schools in Bend so that people want to come here and work here and live here and stay here. So I'm really excited about our plan. I hope that we get to implement it. Our kids need, more mental health supports than ever before, and I really hope that within a year or so we see that act, fully funded.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Janet, your turn.
There's so much to say around the Student Success Act. And what I want to say is that part of my role with the Early Learning Hub is having the privilege of sitting in on a lot of meetings with partners of the EL Hub that bring in so much needed perspective and optic when it comes to the disparities affecting students of color, Black students, Latino students, Indigenous and Native students. Seeing the writing on the Student Success Act truly feels like finally an investment in people like me, in people like Marcus, and in people like those that we are in community with. To say that it's long overdue, I agree 100% with Carrie. It's an understatement. This is years of overdue work that's necessary. Speaking specifically about the tax increase that Carrie alluded to, I think when we break it down to numbers and if we want to chalk it up to a bottom line, the investment that is so minor in the greater scale of things is sort of a bare minimum of what we should be investing in communities of color and in communities that are disproportionately affected. So to say that I stand behind the Student Success Act, yes, wholeheartedly. And I have a lot of knowledge and background on this piece of legislation and what it can do for our students and what it can do for our educators and superintendents. And again, looking at just numbers as they are, we need to look at humans instead of numbers. We need to look at students instead of tax increase. We need to look at parents, human centering the family versus what it's going to do to our tax increase, whether we're a business owner or not. Again, it's something that is long overdue, and I am incredibly proud of the legislation that went around it and the amendments that come with it. There is opposition, but I think that the opposition sort of speaks for itself and where they want to invest funds.
Thank you very much, Janet. Shirley, you're next on the next question. What are your priorities for using the federal funding the district receives from the CARES Act or other pandemic recovery funds?
Well, we've talked about a few of those things, and we've talked a little bit about the gaps that have occurred because of the pandemic and the changes that we were forced to make in how our schools are operating. The feds give us a baseline, but they do not understand what our local community really needs. So again, the role of the board is to define what those needs are and be sure that that money is directed to a plan that covers the needs of the community, the families, and the staff. And the state funds, some of which we've talked about a little bit, will also support and will help us. But let's take a look at, for a second, at Title I, one of the biggest federal funding pieces of legislation that was ever passed. And it was targeted originally to what they considered needy schools, and they defined those schools. Well, you know what? We're all needy in some way. And so the CARES Act does provide us with a base, but we have to interpret that base and see what the needs are. I do think, again, the board has done a great job of making plans. We just need to turn those plans into action.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Carrie, your question next.
Thank you. Yeah, I think first of all, it's important to put the CARES Act funding in perspective. And although we are grateful and we'll take every extra dollar we can get, our overall budget is about $375 million. And so far we've seen about $8 million from the CARES Act. So, well, great, and we will use it wisely. It is not nearly enough to make up for a year of lost learning in addition to all of the mental and emotional trauma that our kids have experienced. That being said, we have decided at this point to target it primarily towards summer school for the next 2 years. Summer school is a really effective and opportunistic time to try to make up some of the learning loss for students. I think it's really critical that we are clear that this funding needs to be used for the students that have suffered the most during the pandemic. There has been, the pandemic has exacerbated all of the problems and inequities that existed before the pandemic in really dramatic and visible ways. And so, for example, during the pandemic, we have some kids who ended up with private tutors or small pods of 4 with a full-time teacher, and they may have received the best year of education of their life. And then we have other students whose parents were working full-time and couldn't afford a private teacher who have suffered tremendously. And so that funding needs to be really targeted towards the families and students who need it the most. We will do as much as we can with it. It is not enough. And once again, our schools and teachers will be asked at the beginning of next year to do more with less and to do the impossible. And they're pretty good at that. Our teachers, start every school year dealing with learning loss and dealing with students who haven't gotten all of their needs met over the summer, and they'll do it again. So not enough, but we will use it as wisely as we can.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Janet, your turn.
Yeah, I'm glad that Carrie mentioned that. You'd be amazed at how quickly $8 million is spent. I had the opportunity to be the fiscal sponsor for some federal CARES Act funding that hit our city in regards to emergency childcare. And I don't think I've ever sat back and watched money vanish so quickly as I did. And that is the nature of the crisis that Central Oregon is in. And we're only talking about the childcare crisis that exists. there are so many other disparities and equities that exist for our schools where that funding needs to be priority. But in watching that and experiencing that, it was really plain to see that our intentional investments and our priorities are not aligned across the community. Because if we are investing hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars that only serve a small minority of folks, we are not addressing the disparities that affect all communities around us. Managing money, managing budgets is my jam. I joke about it, but it's what I do for a living. And as a single parent, my added layer of experience of having to work on shoestring budgets counts for more than you can imagine. I think there is a better way to serve community. There is a smarter and more fiscally responsible way to do it with the limited amount that we have available. And so coming on to this board of already existing members that are prioritizing those investments, I think is going to be a really easy thing for us to work out together, because we can work collaboratively to address all of those needs across the board as best as we can with that shoestring budget that we've been allotted.
Thank you very much, Janet. Marcus, your turn.
No worries. Thank you very much. And to piggyback all of what these lovely ladies have said, again, think about it from this perspective. We know, and in my job every day, I help students budget and find resources all the time. And listening to their stories and them telling me what happens to them on a daily basis and understanding how they have to navigate their worlds is the same way we got to look at using this CARES Act money. We know, like you said, we know how much we have, but I think the ultimate thing we need to continue to do, like I tell my students all the time working with them, you got to continue to invest in yourself. And what I mean by that is, as a board or as a district, we need to invest in our own people to implement things that's going to be very strategic to make sure that we have in-person learning, we keep education staff safe, we improve the different systems that we have, ventilation, if that's what we want to talk about, purchasing personal protective devices if we need to. We need to ultimately, hopefully, avoid layoffs if we can, hire additional educators to address any loss. We need to look at those CARES Act also. I think some of the other things we need to look at is maybe implementing strategies to meet the social emotional needs of health, of academics of many of our students. Look at funding critical after school programs, so forth and so on. Is this getting Wi-Fi to students, make sure they have health care, all different things that we're gonna need to be successful. So I think that's where a lot of the monies need to go. And education on a lot of those things too, working with parents to make sure that they know what's gonna happen when we have a pandemic again, so that we can be educated on how we can attack these things. So yeah, to piggyback all what they're saying, we just need to collaborate, come together, build a strategy, have a great plan, and execute it as the best we can.
Thank you very much, Marcus. The next question, Carrie, you'll be first. What particular skills, experience, or strengths will help you with the leadership responsibilities you need to be on the Ben-LaPine School Board?
Yeah, being on an elected board is such a unique experience. On paper, I have a really great resume to be on school board. I'm a former educator, both a teacher and administrator. As I said, I have degrees in both education and finance. I'm a small business owner. I've lived in this community for a long time. I really thought that I would just get on the board and it would be super clear and easy what the role would be. And I found out that it is unlike any role I've been in, including being the CEO or the owner, because you're not the CEO. And so I think, my experience is clear across education and finance and community advocacy and equity is what I do in my day job all day around the country with school districts. But I think the nuances that I've had the opportunity to spend the last 4 years learning what it means to be an elected board member, one of 7, in a policy governance model where we have a few levers of power, and that's mainly hiring and managing and evaluating the superintendent, managing the budget, writing and executing and monitoring policy, and engaging with the community. And we shouldn't be micromanaging anything else, and that can be frustrating for board members. So I've made a lot of mistakes. Every one of my mistakes has helped me be a better school board member. And I think that that combination of skills and experience and passion and personal investment, as I said, I'm going to have kids in the system for the next 15 years. So I care deeply about my kids and all the kids in our community.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Janet, your turn.
Well, I just talked a little bit about my finance and budget and grant management and all that background stuff, which is incredibly important and an incredibly unique skill set. More than anything, I'm a parent. I'm a parent of 2 Ben Lapine students that have been in our district since kindergarten. That is a unique strength in its own when you pair it with the experience that I have, the lived experience. Again, repeating myself, I am the daughter of migrant parents, undocumented at one time. The successes and the barriers that I have lived through as not only an individual but as a parent matter immensely to this board. And bringing forth that leadership role that I strongly push for with my work in the nonprofit sector with Mcpherson. These are all skill sets that are unique to me, that are unique to any other candidate that has been on the Ben Lapine School Board. And I hope that they will see the value in that lived experience and that that the voters see those particular skill sets that I bring to the table, unlike any other candidate does. With that comes humility. I don't know it all. I don't have the voice of every community member. I don't have the skills to address all issues, but I'm willing to learn. And that's how I've made it this far, is by being willing to learn, being open and being receptive to criticism, to adjustments, and to whatever needs to happen around that. I have basically self-taught myself in a lot of things. I don't hold many degrees because I didn't have the opportunity to go to college or to study extra anything higher ed beyond my high school, or my GED actually, diploma from Mount Hood Community College. So if you want real life experience, if you want to know what's truly affecting the community and you care about a person that's self-sufficient, then that's where I come in.
Thank you so much. Marcus, your question next.
No worries. Thank you, Cam. Appreciate it. I think this question is pretty simple. What particular skills or experience, like Carrie said, we have our resumes, you've seen our experiences. I think what we have ultimately, the one thing that no one gets to talk about a lot, and I'm not trying to brag and say this, we get things done. I think that's what we bring to the table. We get things done. People come to us for a reason. We change lives in what we do. Every day, the students that walk into my office when they could, or if they try to Zoom or talk to me on the phone, I get to hear their life experiences. Yet I have an understanding of what they're going through because I've been where they've been. Yes, I grew up in a single parent household who got her son to college through the military, who busted his butt into correspondence courses while he was in the military in the middle of the ocean, who took the time to go to the community colleges anywhere I lived. There was a base nearby. I took the opportunity to leave my home, small town right outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, called Baden, North Carolina, to be able to go and live in a bigger city and be able to get to my degree and graduate with honors and be able to work internships with Fortune 500 companies. A small town kid who understood that, hey, hard work is going to get you somewhere. Guess what? That led me to work in corporate America for 15 years to be a senior manager. And now I'm working in education to be able to hand that experience, my experiences, over to some student or many students who may need that knowledge. That's what I'm there. That's what I bring to the table. If you want to look at particular skills that make kids feel that they're welcome, included, and most of all cared about, that's what I bring to the table. And if you can't understand and I'm passionate about that, you don't know me.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Shirley, your question next.
Yeah, that's kind of my closing statement. I have had the privilege to go through school, to go through the University of Oregon for both my bachelor's and my master's, and to get a doctorate degree from USC in educational leadership. You know that I've been around. And so my vast experience and knowledge of schools and what can and can't be done, and some things that did work and some things that didn't work, is the perspective that I bring to the board. I have worked for, I think it's 8 different superintendents in my career, 2 of which were national superintendents of the year. I have seen, I have seen lots of questions and lots of solutions. I don't know all the answers, but I am pretty good at figuring out what the questions are. I also have served on boards of every professional organization that I've been involved in 3 states, in Oregon, California, and New York, and president of a couple of those. So I think it's the perspective. You can tell that we each bring a little bit different set of values and a little bit different perspective. And I think that's very, very healthy, especially when you're looking at 4 people, 3 of whom would be brand new to the board under Carrie's wonderful leadership. But that combination of skills and knowledge and experience is probably the most diverse that Bend Lapine has ever seen.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Janet, your questions, the next question is yours. It's a new one. Scientific evidence indicates a strong need for masks and vaccines. If elected to the school board, would you incorporate this evidence into school policy? Would you require teachers, staff, and administrators to be vaccinated?
Yeah, there's so much information, data, science, metrics, whatever you want to chalk it up to out there that's available for us to refer to and to follow. There is a component of the question here that asks, would we require teachers, staff, and administrators to be vaccinated? When I look at the word require, I look at what is an optional right and what is a forced issue. And right now, I think what is most important is, again, being able and being aware of the science, of the information that's out there, and implementing things that serve the needs of all. There are serious health concerns with folks that cannot be vaccinated or will have adverse reactions to vaccines. So mandating something or requiring something is not equity, right? We need to look at all experiences and all sorts of situations where this could become more troublesome or more detrimental to a person than it is a benefit to them. And if we're not willing to adapt and adjust to that, I think we're going to find that there will be probably some consequences to this requirement. I believe in fact-based evidence. I believe in science. I believe in what the CDC is telling us and what doctors are saying is good for us. But I also believe that it is the responsibility of each household parent or guardian to make that decision as best informed as possible and for what is beneficial to their family. And as far as staff and school administrators, I think that this is something that can't be summarized in 2 minutes, but it's something that we can certainly talk about as a board with input from the community. So I don't think there's one right answer.
Thank you very much, Janet. Marcus, your question.
No worries. Thank you, Kim. Appreciate it very much. I think ultimately what we're saying here is we have to look at the evidence, look at the information like we always would. We would come together as a board, talk, communicate, figure out what's the best things possible, talk to our stakeholders, get a feel for where they're coming from, how we can be supported, and then basically make a decision. And you just got to take the facts and go with the information. Sometimes you just have to do that, but also give people information, be transparent with that information, that knowledge that you do have, so that, like Janet stated, you can make informed decisions. That's ultimately what it is. We can't speak for everyone. All we can do is give people information, allow them to be able to make a conscious decision, but then respect their decision, right? That's the key thing. Respect the decision they make. And we can't fight them on it. That's what they choose to do. All we got to do is the best to keep students safe, our staff, faculty, and the community safe as well. And I think if we come together, when the smart, brilliant people we have here, I believe it'll work. So that's the way I look at it. Just do the work and make sure we have the information and understanding and go for it.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Shirley, your question.
Yes, the balance between the good for the community or the environment or whatever, balanced against individual rights, comes up in every situation that we can name. Carrie has a list of enough issues to keep us going for I don't know how long, years and years and years, right? But again, it's that balance. It's the same question that is about vaccinating students. And there are reasons for individuals to not comply. And there are options or, if you will, opt-out options for lots of things that we do in schools. So again, I'm with Janet. I'm not sure the require is quite the right word, but I do think that if folks are not going to listen to the data and the recommendations, that they have to have a good reason, and some group or person has to acknowledge that. So yeah, I'd like to require it, but I don't think that's realistic. You've got, you know, how many thousand kids and how many thousand staff, and that's just not reasonable. So I think we need to take a stand on it, but I do think we always have to understand that there could be and will be an opt-out option.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Carrie, your question, please.
Yeah, well, first of all, I try to recognize what I know and don't know. And I am not a doctor, and I'm certainly not an epidemiologist. And I think we have to continue to learn to, you know, continue to listen to what they tell us about what works. And that has changed. And I've had to change my mind about some of these issues. I also think it's important to recognize that, at least in my opinion, masks and vaccines are two very different conversations. Masks are an easy, cheap, non-intrusive method of significantly halting the spread of the disease. And I will absolutely continue to require them if that is what epidemiologists believe is best for our public health and that of our students. Vaccines are different. They are a medical intervention. And I do believe that there should be some choice. I think that we should also do everything possible to incentivize people to get the vaccine, to make it as easy as possible, to make clear the trade-offs, because if not enough people get vaccinated, then maybe we have to keep wearing masks for a long time. And so people can think about those sorts of trade-offs. And so just need to continue to listen, learn, talk to the community, but I will always do what the scientists recommend while balancing the need for people to have some decisions when an actual medical intervention is at stake.
Great. Thank you very much, Carrie. The next question will be, Janet.
Last one. This is the last question.
Oh, wait, hold on, guys. I just screwed up. Sorry. This will be our last question. And the first person is Marcus. Sorry about that. And there we go. Is there a subject that you had hoped to illuminate that differentiates you from your opponent?
Thank you, Kim. It's not really about illuminating anything. I'm always one of those people, if you want to do the work, come jump in. That's the way I look at it, because I'm from the old school, and this is how I learned, and I'm just going to put it very simple. The people who always showed up, who were always dedicated and did everything necessary to make things done, they showed up and did the work. They didn't come in the last minute. People who grind and make sure that things are proper are always there every day doing it hard, making sure that things are changed. Here's the thing. This is my differentiation in terms of me and my opponent. I want to see you doing the work. Come join us. We're here. We're open-minded. We're welcoming people. We want support. We want other people engaged. Please be a part of it. That's the way I look at it. Because I feel if you are doing other things, let us know so we can support you. I'm not trying to say or be mean about it. Just like, come join us. Because if I've never seen you involved in anything, it's no knock. It's just I just want you to see you engaged, because I'll put my arms around you just like anyone else and join you to help make a difference for our kids. And that's the safety for our kids, our staff, our teachers, and so on. That's the way I look at it. Just come join us, because we're all here fighting hard for change. Let's do it together. So that's the way I look at it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Shirley, you're next, same question.
Well, I think I've pretty much answered that. I really am basing my interest and my passion about schools and kids and students and families. I miss the world of education. I've quote retired a little while ago, and I still think I have something to offer that I'm not sure. I don't really know much about my opponent, so I'm not sure that that's a difference or not, but that level of experience, again, comes with some hard knocks and some understanding of what it takes to put yourself out front. And I do believe that integrity is the very most important thing as we work and live and play together. So that's what I bring, and I'm hoping that people understand that and recognize that with the things I say.
Thank you very much, Shirley. Carrie, you're next.
Thanks, Kim. I actually want to start with what we have in common, which is that we are both mothers. And I know that I would do anything in my power to ensure that my kids are able to thrive. And I assume that my opponent, feels the same way. There's very little, she's put very little out about what she believes or why she's running, except one issue, which is about us opening schools sooner. And so I hear in that she probably is looking at the difficulty of her own children this year and wishing that schools had opened sooner. And I understand that. And we need to always do a better and better job of being in communication with all of our families so that we can understand what they're going through and trying to help them. But being a one issue candidate is not healthy for a board anytime, especially not now in the middle of a crisis and with a new superintendent. I care about every aspect of education, teaching and learning and curriculum and mental health and state level advocacy and bonds and facilities. I believe that there is no reason that Ben Lapine can't be one of the best districts in the country. And I study all the issues. And it appears that my opponent is not interested in any of those other issues. And I don't see any evidence of her being involved in the community. And honestly, I'm really disappointed that she didn't show up tonight, because I would have actually liked to have heard more about what she cares about. To Marcus's point, I want to hear from our community members about what they care about and what we need to do better. But by opting out of this opportunity, the source interview, possibly the bulletin endorsement interview, we have very little opportunity to get to know my opponent. So I'm clear, why I'm here. And I hope, that like all community members, I'll have a chance to understand why she wanted to run and what we can do better.
Thank you very much, Carrie. Janet, your turn.
Well, I'm going to be a little more direct than my fellow candidates. I wish I would have had the opportunity to get to know my opponent, to understand what the foundational message is around demanding that schools open at all costs. Damn be the consequences is not the way that a school board or an educational district should function. There are grave consequences for our actions and for our advocacy. And to have had the opportunity to fully understand why this person feels this way, what prompts them to side with that rhetoric, And it's a little troublesome for me to know that this individual, the little I know, that is employed by a large health provider in our area. It seems a little frightening to me that there isn't as much awareness around that. And so to again be given the opportunity to talk those things through, to understand where my opponent is coming from and why they feel this is so important, in addition to raising awareness around issues that perhaps this person is not familiar with because they don't have my background, because they don't have the same skin color as I do. I would have loved the opportunity to have provided that information and to have raised awareness around issues that perhaps this person does not have, is not privy to this information. That comes from not only my own perspective as a woman of color and a candidate of color, but also around the work that I do in the community that is led and deeply guided by the voice of the community and saying, what are those needs? How do we address them? And how do we do it in a way that honors the differences in our culture, the differences in our race, and the differences in our values and priorities? But having not been given that opportunity, I can only speak for myself and saying that I hope that at some point that changes and that he does reach out and that he does feel at liberty to have these discussions with all of us.
Well, thank you. And thank you to all the candidates for such thoughtful and great answers. We're now going to move on to our closing statements. Again, they were picked at random. And Janet, you go first with your 2-minute closing statement. Thank you.
I think I've taken up a lot of space tonight. So I just want to say that I am, again, first a parent of children in the Ben Lapine School District. I have been listening to the voice of the community for a long, long time. And I feel that I am well informed enough to take on this role and to take on this position of leadership to advocate as strongly as I have for my own community for all of our students across the board. What I bring to the table is a wealth of knowledge and understanding of systemic racism, systemic issues that are affecting communities of color. And without having somebody in the depth of that knowledge, I think we can't move past the issues that are on the table. There are some serious bonds and measures and decisions that need to be made by the board coming up soon. And I would hope that any voter within the Ben Lapine School District would see that this group of people here, not just me, but this group of people here are truly, truly invested in our families and our students and the successes of them too. And we are here because we each have our own individual experience and our own knowledge around these issues. And I think that when you put the 4 of us together in a room, in addition to the 3 other existing board members, what you're going to have is something unprecedented in this area before. So that's my 2-minute speech of why you should vote for me.
Thank you very much, Janet. Marcus, you're next.
Thank you, Cam. I appreciate it very much. And I would like to thank my running mates here as well for all the support and all the love you've given me here during this campaign. And I really appreciate it very, very much. I think ultimately what we're trying to say is the reason I want someone to vote for me is not only just with the lived experience. I think my prioritization of so many things in terms of like developing support for teachers, to have welcoming, equitable classrooms, to continue to be active in DEI, committing to continue to promote academic success with targeted education programming designed to let our students critically think and just learn in a way where it is fruitful for them. Next, I think ultimately I want to continue to support building resilience and self-care and self-understanding and awareness for students, because I think that's the things they're going to need to be able to be successful, not only in our country, but anywhere they like to go to work. But ultimately, I think the main reason I want people to vote for me is there's no one on the current board or in district leadership who has the concrete knowledge of what disparities many of the college level students or first gen students who come from many come from the Ben Lapine School District are going through. And I think ultimately what I want to continue to support them on is the progression of making sure they're safe and inclusive and most importantly relevant information for them to be successful in school. Don't forget the election's May 18th. I would love for your vote for school board, and thank you for even being here tonight.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Next, Shirley, your turn.
Yes, I've pretty much said all I wanted to say about who I am and why I'm interested in running for the board. This is an unprecedented time, and I am kind of a big picture person. I like to talk about the 30,000-foot view. That's part of the role of the board, is the big picture, and then being sure that our administration and our faculty and whoever works in the kitchen, drives the bus, understands everything that we think is important, but we have to invest in them to actually make it happen. I really would love to serve on the board. And again, the four of us come with very different views. On the other hand, we have the same values, and I have always been a supporter of individual kids. Just one quick story. I was working with 9th grade girls who were at-risk girls, not ever gonna even think about graduating high school. And of the 18 that I worked with for a year, when it was their turn to graduate 4 years later, for those who made it, I handed them a red rose as they came off the stage. It was an incredible feeling to know that some of the support that we were able to provide those kids made it happen for them. So thank you very much. I'd love to vote for Shirley. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shirley. Carrie, you get to take us out. Thank you.
Whew, no pressure. You know, I'm guided by a lot of values and ideas, but a couple come to mind when I think about why I ran for school board and why I'm running for re-election, because this is a volunteer job and it's hard work and there's not a lot of glory and sometimes there's a lot of pain. But I was raised to believe in service over self, and that with great privilege comes great responsibility. And I was raised by this community and had so many people pour their time and passion into me. And it's one of the ways that I can give back to the community by serving in this capacity. And I have a lot of privilege, and I believe that it is my responsibility to use whatever space I have to try to lift up and elevate and support the voices of people that haven't been at the table in Ben-Lapine or across the country. And two of those people are Janet and Marcus here tonight. And so they have really, re-energized me coming out of a tough year in wanting to dig back in and do everything we can for every one of our students to be able to thrive. When you listen to the voices of our kids, when you listen to focus groups or just stop into a classroom and speak to them and hear from any kid that they don't feel welcome at our schools, that they don't feel supported at our schools, it's unacceptable, and we have to do better. And so I hope that I think that past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior. And the thing about all four of us is that our past behavior shows that we are leaders, that when we see a problem, we create an organization or find other ways to advocate and fix it. And we've done that for all our lives, and we'll continue to do that on the school board.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Thank you to all of the candidates for participating in today's forum. We really appreciate it. And thanks to the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County and City Club of Central Oregon for participating to get this information out. Remember, if you enjoyed today's forum and would like to help cover the cost, please consider making a donation to City Club of Central Oregon on their website at cityclubco.org. And if you are interested in becoming a member or making a contribution to the League of Women Voters of Deschutes County, please contact them through their website at lwvdeschutes.org. It's a long one. And if you are interested in becoming, Oops, sorry about that. Thanks again to our Candidate Forum Series sponsors, G5 Digital Marketing, Miller Lumber, Brooks Resources, and Deschutes Public Library, Shearshaw's Group, and Louis Capozzi. Without their support, we would not be able to bring you the forums that make and keep democracy strong. The next candidate forum will be the Deschutes Public Library District Board candidates for Zone 3 and will air on April 24th at 5:30 p.m. on the City Club of Central Oregon YouTube channel. Thank you for your interest in keeping democracy alive. This was pre-recorded at an earlier time, and thank you for watching.